Hey guys, today I'm sharing an update on my No Pan Left Behind project. My goal with this project is to use every pan of eyeshadow in my collection at least once in 2025. So I'm working my way through my collection. These are the palettes that were selected for my last round, which was round 4. I use a random number generator to pick basically as many palettes as I want until I feel like I have enough shades to work on. It actually didn't take me long to complete all of these palettes. I had a lot of smaller palettes this round. I honestly could have filmed this video sooner if I wanted to, but I kind of just wanted to keep using and enjoying all these palettes a little bit longer because I had some great palettes in this round. Starting with my magnetic palette, I like to just hand select some magnetic singles each round to complement the palettes that were chosen. So these were not randomly generated. I absolutely love this muted light palette. I thought it was so ethereal, so pretty for spring. I did a mix of warm peachy tones along with some cooler lavender and periwinkle shades, also like a mint green. So just a lot of shades I felt like I was missing in the palettes that were selected this round. My most used shade from here was the shade We Heart Brunch, which is this matte depotted BH Cosmetics shade. It came from the BH Mimosa palette. Just a nice matte peachy beige color. I also used this matte taupe over here 4 times, as well as this sequined peach shade. That came from the ColourPop Miss Bliss palette. I love that shade. The tone of that peach, it's actually kind of similar to We Heart Brunch, but it's even more like a saturated peach. That I used 4 times. Love that shade. I used those two together a lot. I also used this matte taupe here. This is depotted from the Shared Planet Polar Bear palette. I actually ended up mixing that with Vibrant Thing a handful of times to kind of make it a little bit more dusty peach, take down the warmth a little bit. Those top 3 shades I only ended up using 1 time. I actually used those all in one look. I did a periwinkle look with a mint green inner corner. That was so much fun. I love pairing just really any 2 pastel colors together. I find that pastels, no matter what colors they are, they tend to just go together perfectly. And yeah, I usually wouldn't put like a green and a periwinkle together. This shade right here, that's the shade Light Fast from Cleona, but it shifts from like a golden yellow to green to almost a coral red. Yeah, it's so hard to show it, but it has such a pretty shift to it. That one made a really pretty inner corner highlight. And I ended up dipping into this palette a lot when I was using those Flower Lights palettes. I had Desert Lights and Jungle Lights in this round. Both of those are all shimmer palettes, so it was good to have some nice light mattes to pair with those. I ended up with a lot of neutrals this time around, which I think was good. It also made it easy to go through these palettes. But then we have the Beaute Calla palette. I didn't end up getting a ton of use out of this palette, but each shade in here I ended up using only once or twice. I didn't end up repeatedly dipping into any of the shades in here a whole lot, but all the looks I did with this I really liked. Every time I use this palette, I'm blown away by those metallic shades. The mattes in here are lovely as well. I love the 2 lighter mattes, the medium brown and the black. I think you pretty much have everything you need, both mattes and shimmers, to do any kind of sultry, smoky, shimmery eye look. This one went really well with the Nomad Travel palette, which was also part of this round. I mean, I think they naturally just kind of go well together. They kind of just have a similar vibe. The problem I ended up having with this Nomad Travel palette is that the shimmers in here are very prone to creasing, and I've had that with other Nomad shimmers as well. Not all of their palettes, because they seem to use different formulas palette to palette for their shimmers. These are some of the ones that they're very, very creamy, and they are definitely very crease prone. Even with some of my best eyeshadow primers, these creased. And like I was saying, these 2 palettes have a similar vibe. I like the Beaute Calla palette better. This is one of my favorite palettes. I wish it weren't limited edition and that it were still available, but if it weren't for the creasiness of the shimmers in this Nomad palette, I'd be happy to keep it in my collection, but I've actually decided to declutter this. I would say that these 2 palettes take up about the same amount of space, and I feel like the Beaute Calla palette gives me everything I need in these kinds of shades. I used all the shades in here either 1, 3, or 4 times. There were 3 I used 4 times. Let's Take Off, that's this lightest matte color. Fly the Skies, the dark brown matte, and Follow the Sun, the champagne shimmer. Those were the 3 that I used 4 times, and the shade I used the least was See the World. Not a type of color I use all the time. Even that similar shade in the Beaute Calla palette, this one, was the one that took me the longest to dip into. So I don't need two of that kind of shade in my collection. I don't need two of this kind of similar color scheme in my collection, so that makes me feel even better about passing on the Nomad one. The ColourPop Sweet as Can Be palette was the perfect palette to have in this project. It just has such perfect shades for spring and summer. I love that it kind of has all different colors of foliage. I used each shade in here either 1, 2, or 3 times. The 2 shades I used the most, I used each of these 3 times. And those were the shades Make Believe, the light gold champagne. And then I also used the shade Rumbly 3 times. Not surprising to me at all that those are my 2 most used shades in here. I just love those kinds of shades. And then everything else I used either 1 or 2 times. So I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of visible progress in here. Maybe in some of the shimmers we might. But I had a lot of fun with this one. I did do a look featuring the greens in this palette, and the day that I did that look, I ended up feeling like it was almost too green. They were these 2 shades together, especially Honey Tree, this slightly cooler toned green, and then Sing Ho, the other green. Those were the 2. I did a look using both of those on my lid, and I ended up feeling like it looked so green, almost a little too green. So I went on top of that with the ColourPop Super Shock Shadow in Ritz. And you'll see here in the picture, it really toned down those greens, added kind of like a bronzy tint on top of them, and just kind of made them look a little bit more neutral. So if you're ever not loving an eyeshadow look, just top it with Ritz and it'll improve the look. The shade that took me the longest to get to was Pooh Bear, this orange matte. I ended up using it on the upper lash line, kind of blended out with a brown liquid liner on top of that as part of like a very like goldeny peach look. So that's the kind of look I think this shade goes well with, but otherwise I don't really find myself using like very rusty orange colors. But all in all, I still really love this palette and it's a definite keeper. And then I had both of these Flower Lights palettes in this round. Jungle Lights, I still love this palette. It's great for one and done looks. For example, I did one look using just this light purple shimmer. That's the shade Wild. Love that shade. I'd have to say that's probably my favorite in this palette. That all over the lid, blended out in the crease. Beautiful one and done look. You can kind of do that with any of the shades in here. There was also another look I did where I mixed the gold and the coral. It made the most gorgeous bronzy copper lid shade. I actually ended up using each shade in here only once or twice, so the 3 most used shades were the 3 that I used twice. Those were Amazon, the gold, Tiger Lily, the coral, and Paradise, the champagne. But so nice to get some good use out of this palette. I also got some really good use out of the Desert Lights palette, which is my personal favorite of the lights. This one, it's just all things rose gold and bronze. My most used shade in here is actually Mirage, this first shade on the top. That one I think I ended up using a lot on the inner corner as like a light pink pearly inner corner shade. Usually the lightest shimmer in a palette like this ends up being my default inner corner highlight. And that's exactly what this shade ended up being for me. I actually feel like I have a decent sized dip going in that shade, as well as, honestly, all of these shades have like slight dips, which is so fun. I love to see that. My least used shade was Red Rocks. That's kind of like the most pink shade of the palette. It's like a pinky mauve shimmer. And then all 4 of these other shades, I used each of those 3 times. I would actually say my favorite shade in here is this shade, Sahara. It's this gorgeous duochrome. It's a rose gold, but it's honestly so much more than that because like look how pink it is when you don't see the shift, and then look how bright gold it gets. This whole round was so much fun, only 1 declutter. So that concludes this round. Now, onto the exciting part, we pick a new selection of palettes for round 5. So I've pulled up my spinny wheel of palettes. These are all the palettes in my collection that I've not yet completed in this project. And this is an app called Tiny Decisions. Let's pick my first palette for round 5. Ooh, one of my favorites, Nomad Ghost Town USA. I know I've decluttered a lot of my Nomad palettes so far this year. This is one I am certain I will never declutter. This is my all-time favorite Nomad palette. I think you can tell based on all the dips in here. I cannot wait to play with that. And we're kicking things off with a rather large palette. Let's pick another. Another Nomad. We are working our way through my Nomad palettes this year. Nomad Ireland. This is a very bright green palette, which I think will be very fitting for summer. I'm gonna have some fun with it. Let's pick one more. I was actually just earlier hoping that we would get this one. This is Natasha Denona, I Need a Nude. Yay. I think this will be a nice counterbalance to those other two palettes that we just picked, which are both, I wouldn't call either of these neutral. They're both a bit more bold. I mean, yes, they have some neutral shades in them, but these are kind of more bold palettes, so I think it'll be nice to have a nice subdued nude palette. Another slightly larger palette though. This is a 15 pan, and both of those Nomad palettes are 18 pan. So we have 3 palettes on the larger side, yet I'm still tempted to pick one more. So let's pick one more, and I think we'll cut it off there. Yay! Okay, I'm so glad we picked one more because I was also just thinking about this palette and how it would be really fun to get this one. This is the What's Up Dragon Eye palette. Gorgeous color palette for spring and summer. I love the mix of neutrals and colors in here, and the fact that all the colors are colorful yet kind of muted. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to really dig into this palette because I feel like I've had this for almost a year now, but I still feel like I haven't really gotten to know it that well. So only 4 pre-made palettes this time, but I think this will be a really fun selection to work with. We have some more colorful ones, plus a very neutral palette, which will be great for everyday looks. So I went through all my singles that I haven't used yet this year, and I picked out the ones that for me feel the most summery and bright and colorful because this is the time of year that I'm most excited to reach for these kinds of shades. So I picked out a bunch of bright, fun colors, especially shades that I felt like weren't really included in these palettes. I definitely shied away from anything green because I have plenty of green already in these palettes, but this is what I chose. So this first shade is a blue. This is from the Shared Planet Polar Bear palette. It's just a really, really fun kind of light turquoise blue, and it has a little bit of a purple shift to it. It's so much fun. Normally something I think of as a winter shade because it originally came from a winter palette, but it definitely doesn't have to be. I think this would be really fun in a bright, colorful summer look as well. All the rest of these square shades are depotted BH Cosmetics shadows. This yellow one is the shade Sunny from the BH Mimosa palette. Such a fun electric yellow shade. Then the orange here is the shade OJ from the Mimosa palette as well. Then I have one from the BH Lost in Los Angeles palette. This is the shade Abbott Kinney. It is a matte pinky purple color. Very fun. I also chose some pinks and reds. Another one from the Lost in Los Angeles palette. This is the shade The 405. It's a matte peachy pink. This is such a fun warm matte red. It's from the BH Summer in Saint Tropez palette, and it's the shade Jet Set. It's this fun, like warm, almost ketchup red. Love this shade. This is really fun for a winged liner as well. The one round shade in here, this is a ColourPop single in the shade Prowlin. It is a light lavender shimmer with a little bit of a gold champagne shimmer. Another red, this is more of a pinky red, kind of a watermelon red. It's the shade Pomegranate from the BH Mimosa palette. Very fun, very bright. And last but not least, we have another shade from the Mimosa palette. This is called Pop, and it is a duochrome pinky golden. So really just the epitome of summer. I just grabbed all the summer colors I could find. So to kick off round 5 of No Pan Left Behind, as always, I'm going to create an eyeshadow look using some combination of shades from these palettes. So I think what I'm going to do is, I do it differently every time just based on what I'm in the mood for, but I think this time what I'll do is just randomly pick one shade from each of these palettes to create a look with, so it's kind of like one giant palette bingo. Let's start with my singles palette. So now I've moved over to the Pretty Random app, which is just a random number generator. And first I'm going to pick a shade from my magnetic singles. I've input numbers 1 through 9. And I got shade 9, the last shade, which is this pinky shimmer. That is the shade Pop from the BH Mimosa palette. So starting things off nice and fun with a pink. So next for the What's Up Dragon Eye palette, I've put in 1 through 12. Ooh, and I got shade 1. Fun. Okay, that's the shade Fly, which is this gorgeous light shimmer, very glassy shade. It is a kind of frosty, like light beige to blue silver duochrome. Really pretty. Okay, 2 gorgeous shimmers to start things off. Next, let's pick a shade from I Need a Nude. So this is a 15 pan palette. and I got shade 11. And that's the shade Wit, the light matte peach. Okay, so far, love this color story. So next up we have the Nomad Ireland. And we got shade 3. That is the shade Slancha, I think is how you pronounce it. I have a turquoise green shade with a bit of a gold duochrome to it. Okay, things are getting interesting. It's kind of looking a little mermaid-esque, this color story. Let's see what we get for our 5th and final shade from the Nomad Ghost Town palette. Another 18 pan palette. And we got shade 6. Ooh, another green. And that's the shade Ghost Town. Really pretty light muted sage green. Okay, very interesting color story. A lot of pink and green, which I think is a really fun combo. So let's see what we can come up with here. Okay, I think I know what I want to do. I want to start out with the green matte, the shade Ghost Town from the Ghost Town palette. Taking this on a BK Beauty 211. It's a smaller fluffy crease brush. This is going to go in the outer half of my crease. Really like mainly focusing it on just the outside part of my crease. Okay, then I'm taking the Alter Ego 204, which is kind of the same like size and shape brush. It's like just a small fluffy crease brush. And I'm dipping into the shade Wit from I Need a Nude. And I'm placing that in the inner part of my crease. The inner half. So those are the only 2 mattes I got. Next I'm going to dip into the shade Slancha from the Nomad Ireland palette. This really pretty green shade. This I'm placing in the outer third of my lid. That's the deepest shade I got. So I want to put that in my outer corner where I want the most depth. Going back to that BK 211 brush, just using that to blend those greens a little bit more. Okay, then I'm taking that really fun pink shade Pop from BH Mimosa, and that is going right here in the inner half of my lid. So yeah, we are totally leaning fully into the pink and green. And then I'm going back to that other crease brush, the Alter Ego 204, and blending those pinky shades together. I'm really trying to kind of keep the pinks and the greens mostly separate. I'm not really blending them together too much because I know that I don't want them to become muddy, but I will just really lightly blend right on the edges. Okay, very fun. Then, the only shade I haven't used yet is Fly from the What's Up Dragon Eye palette. So I want to put this, ooh, so creamy. Okay, I think I got enough for both eyes just then. But this I want in the center of my lid. I'm using it kind of as a topper and just to bring even more light to the lid. Also going to take a little of that on my pinky on the inner corner. Okay, wow, this is actually such a fun look. So now I'm going to take just a little bit of the shade Wit again from I Need a Nude. And this I'm also going to take just down below on the lower lash line. So on the lips, I went with a Corally Peach shade to coordinate with the eyes and also the earrings that I already had on, but ended up going perfectly with the whole ensemble. But on the lips, I have the AOA lip liner in Satin, which is a light peachy color, and I topped it with the e.l.f. Glossy Lip Stain in Coral Cutie. I think it's so fun and juicy for summer, and I absolutely love this look. That's what I love about randomly generated eye looks. I think they're so much fun, a great way to get out of your comfort zone. I'm so excited for this new round of palettes. I'm sure you'll see a lot of these on my eyes in upcoming videos, but thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. I will leave my No Pan Left Behind playlist linked on the end screen if you want to catch up on previous updates in this series. It's been so much fun this year. But otherwise, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, and I will talk to you very soon in my next video. Bye!